I'm a 23-year-old woman, and I'm half Cherokee from Georgia, USA. At the time that this story took place, my fiancé and I were living on a large farm in Maryland. We didn't use the farm, but we were renting a small house on the property, and we were free to come and go around the grounds. I was only 19 at the time this took place, and the only residents in our home were myself, my fiancé, our cat, and dog. Our cat was a lunatic barn cat that I had rescued because I can't say no to animals that need help. And our dog was my loyal pit bull, who is a sweet, cuddly, scaredy cat. She weighed about 75 pounds and was afraid of her own shadow. Our farm was situated on about 20 acres of land, and our driveway was about half a mile long. So, usually when I would get home from work, my loyal dog and I would go for a walk. And usually I brought my fiancé with me. Not that I was afraid to go out alone, just that he spends too much time playing games and not using his legs. After our driveway was a 12-mile-long road through woods and farms until finally reconnected with civilization, so it was safe to say that we were far, far from other people. Except for our landlord, of course. The first miles were through open farmland, followed by a brief patch of forest, and then about half a mile of wheat fields, and then a solid forest for 2 more miles. Now that you have a bit of the layout, on to the really creepy bit. So, it started off like any other weekday evening. My fiancé and I turned home from work to our happy cottage and happy pets. Harley, our dog, was frantic to go for a walk, so I quieted her and changed into walking clothes and asked if my fiancé would join me. He'd gotten home shortly after me and said he'd seen one of the coyotes we have around close to the field by our house. But as you may know, coyotes are mostly scavengers, especially out here on the East Coast, so I wasn't too worried. And I am very capable of defending myself. I called him a puss, and then told Harley that we could go, and that we would be fine without him. Laughing to myself, we left the cottage and started walking towards the driveway. The sun was going down, and the October air had started to get a chill to it, and it rustled through the cornfields next to our long driveway. The corn was about 6 feet tall at this point in the year, and impossible to see through, so I assumed that my fiancé was just trying to scare me because there was no way he could have seen a coyote in this field. Harley was enjoying her time in the field, tearing in and out of the corn stalks on our walk up the driveway, and I knew that with as big of a coward as she was, that she would alert me to any danger very quickly and by running away. By the time I reached the end of the driveway, the sun had set, and the moon, which had already come out, was shining high about the fields. It wasn't quite full, but it provided enough light that I didn't need to use my flashlight or Harley's collar light. We turned left down the road and proceeded across the first section of field. The first field was soybeans, and if you don't know, they are relatively short plants that nothing but a rabbit could hide in. And off in the distance I spotted a few deer, but nothing alarming, so we relaxed and enjoyed our walk through the night air. I threw a stick, and Harley brought it back over and over again, typical dog and owner stuff. We reached the first small section of trees, and Harley stopped and bumped into my leg, letting me know there was something ahead. It wasn't a coyote or a deer, but there was a rabbit that had been hit by a passing car and was still struggling. As much as I hate to say this, there was no way it was going to live, and honestly, it's probably what drew the coyote pack in. I knelt down by it and, using my knife, quickly put it out of its misery as my family had taught me, and I let it pass into the next life. Feeling sad but somewhat relieved that all we had encountered was a handful of deer and that poor rabbit, we continued our walk and passed into the next field. This was a wheat field, and the wheat was about ready for harvest, so it was quite tall and hard to see through. The field was quiet, though, and Harley didn't do anything, so I figured the coyotes had passed on, if there had been any at all. Now, this is the part that you've been waiting for, and I don't know what it was, but here it is. We rounded the corner of the field and into an area with wheat on our left and forest on our right, and the air seemed to go still. Harley got closer to me, and I heard rustling in the wheat field. I saw 3 tails circling back towards the forest, coyotes. The eastern coyotes are small, but in a pack they can get pretty ballsy. Harley raised her hackles and I yelled, "Get out of here! Go on! Just fuck off!" as loud as I could, and the coyotes startled and scattered off into the trees. I decided to turn around and get out of there before they decided to regroup, because I am brave, but I'm not going to walk into a darkened forest with a coyote pack and a cowardly pit bull. We turned to head back again, and I heard rustling in the wheat. A confused coyote? I thought it must be, but no. Harley was standing stock still, staring at the wheat, and I whistled for her to come with me. That high-pitched, ear-piercing 2-fingered whistle. That snapped her out of it for a second, when my whistle was returned from inside the wheat. All of a sudden, all of the family legends I had heard came flooding back to me, and I expected to see a tall, thin creature emerge. But nothing did. I didn't smell rotting meat or feel a sense of dread. Instead, I was transfixed with fear and curiosity. I whistled again, and the whistle was returned again. Very human sounding, but at the same time, not. Against my better judgment, I said, "Hello?" My own voice replied, "Hello?" My hand on my knife, I said, "Show yourself!" Silence. No bugs. Not coyotes. No Harley noises. Just my own breath. Slowly, the rustling started again, and I turned on my flashlight. I shined it on the wheat field, and what I saw confuses me to this day. Animal eyes. That green-yellow reflection of light was cast back at me, but what it was connected to didn't make sense. There was a girl, no more than 14 or 16, crouched in the wheat. She wore what I think must have been some kind of deer or fur, and she was naked otherwise. She was very thin, and looked as though her skin had never seen sunlight. Her hair was long and tangled with wheat and leaves. Under any other circumstances, I would have said she was beautiful, but at that moment, she was terrifying. We stared at each other for what must have been a solid minute or so, but felt like much longer, until I heard the unmistakable coyote howl from the forest. Both of our heads snapped towards the noise, and immediately I heard her take off through the wheat, towards the sound. At that same moment, Harley took off toward our house, and I went after her. We didn't stop running until we got into the driveway, and I stopped, not wanting my fiancé to know I was running away from something. I could still hear the howling in the distance. and we started walking at a brisk pace. We made it back to the cottage with no further problems, and I didn't tell my fiancé about it, not wanting him to go out with a gun. She hadn't hurt me, so I didn't think it right to hunt her. I was awoken in the middle of the night that night by the sound of the coyotes outside our cottage. This wasn't unusual, but now I wondered if she was with them. When I was coming home from work about a month later, I had stopped obsessing about that night, and I had almost thought I had imagined it, when I had to slam on my brakes for something in the road. It was dark, and when my headlights hit it, its eyes reflected green and yellow. It was a large coyote. It just stared at my car for a moment and ran off into the woods. I know this sounds crazy, but I still wonder if that was her.